Alright, so today, in preparation for the test this week, we're going to go over one-point perspective and the outdoors, generally looking at outdoor structures such as buildings, sidewalks, and the like, as those will tie directly into what you'll be doing on the test. Now, for our first box here, we are going to be making a street. And the importance of this lesson is that you look here, we have vanishing point in the middle, horizon line in the middle. That's generally how we've been doing it. But there will be other things I have to deal with, because on the test, I will be setting the height of the horizon line as well as the placement of the vanishing point. As you see here, this one has a high vanishing point and a high horizon line. This one has a low horizon line with the vanishing point all the way to the side. And this one is a little closer to the center with the vanishing points completely on the other side. So because of this, how you approach one-point perspective will change depending on where you are. So first off, we need to start with the vectors. Now, a nice little trick to drawing vectors is if you draw a line just as straight as you can towards your dominant hand, in which case I am right-handed, you're going to get relatively straight lines just about every time, unless, you're shaky. That one is just a little mess up there. It could still work, but let's try to get as close to accurate as possible here. Now, when doing this, it is key that one, all vectors spread from the vanishing point. And two, draw your vectors lightly, and I cannot emphasize that enough. Because when you are done, you will in fact have to erase all your vectors, and leaving just the lines of the actual artwork. So we're going to start here, and I am just going to... I can use this. So you can start with a sidewalk. So I'm going to find the line that I want to use. In this case, these vectors right here. And get another small vector to ride right alongside it. Now as you can see, everything that is going away from the vanishing point starts to widen out. Now at this point, I'm going to use horizontal lines to establish my sidewalk. And as we get closer to the vanishing point, they are going to get closer and closer together. Kind of like the tile work that we did in the hallway last week. Now, not quite done just yet. There are things that sidewalks need. For example, we need gutters. Think it, hello Georgie, that kind of stuff. Gutters are necessary because without them, we literally have no way of stopping flooding. Like so. And while at it, let's go ahead and place a light post. Now, because of how close we are, we're not actually going to see this. Use a vertical line. What matters is that we establish some level of height. So let's say that our light post is about here, which means this vector we're declaring as the top of our light post. So because of that, we can now draw multiple light posts and now we know how tall they should be relative to one another. Most light posts I know are black, so we'll just color that in. Okay. So here we have our first bit of street. We have a gutter. Let's put that note here. Because control flooding. Nice little note there for your Build a City project that will be at the end of this entire lesson. And let's try to get something else here. Have a trash can. In which case, trash cans are generally going to be cylindrical. And anything circular will start out as an ellipse. Vertical line to put it in space. And a smaller one, since we're getting a little closer to the horizon line here. Now I'm going to be using curved lines for the netting. And then crisscross them on the other side. And finally, some light shading. So there, we have trash can. And let's say these people are just mindful of their surroundings. Get another one there. We have our light post, we have our gutter, we have one entire side of the street made, so let's make another one. Now you can see here, this one isn't directly in the middle, even though I have it set here, it's a little bit off, so don't panic if you try this and for some reason it's not being perfectly symmetrical. Remember, we're not looking for perfection in this class, we're looking for accuracy, not perfection. So now I'm going to refine my lines here. And once again use... Nope. That's a little too diagonal for my taste. Once again, we are going to use horizontal lines to establish our space. And we'll just put another little gutter over here. Evil clowns are optional. Okay, so since we have established our lights over here, we're going to just pick out, let's just choose this one here to make our other row of lights, because you do need multiple lights on any given road. Let's, think safety here. You don't need the exact number on both sides, but it does help to have some established lights. There we go. Now we have our sidewalk, we have a gutter, we have a trash can, we have our street lights. Let's go ahead and create a small crosswalk. Generally these go at the end of a road, but we will get to actual traffic lights in one of the other sections. Right now we are going to assume that this is a smaller area, kind of like where we are now. And see, everything I did here, I just used the...
Can I get the following 8th graders to the front office, please? Brooklyn Morris, Lewis Livingston, Willie Lawrence, Dominic Freeman, Ashley Johnson, and Stephanie Jackson.
Now, sorry about that announcements. Now everything here I've just been making using my vectors as my diagonals. So most of my lines have actually just been horizontals and verticals. So now that we have this out of the way, have a little crosswalk, have a little trash can. Let's see, let's not worry terribly much about cars and stuff like that. That is another beast altogether. We are going to make our buildings now. So this is a smaller area. We're not, in a big city. So I'm going to establish my building over here. Vertical line to establish height, and then just gonna have it be this tall is fine. Now next I'm going to have another building. But I'm going to start with a horizontal line. Now this building is actually sitting on our horizon line, so the bottom is going to be flat and go alongside it. And then another down here. Not worry too much about that one. This is too far away to have any actual details. But see, by using these lines here, we've established there's space, or generally an alleyway, between our two buildings. Then on this side, I'm going to establish another building, but this time I am going to use specifically the horizon line. I'm going to make it a little bit bigger than what I'm using here. It's further back. Now, the difference is I'm going to cut the corner here. It's all still sitting on the horizon line. In this case, I'm going to use my horizontal because we're going to establish some windows over here. And then even further back, so this will serve as our parking lot. A little flub there. There we go. So we have some buildings. Let's actually get to some designs. Now, over here I did some shading in, so I'm going to follow that because I, with that one building, have established that my light source is somewhere around here. Let's get us a door. Now the door is higher than our horizon line, which means that since most doors in buildings have outcroppings, or are generally set more into the building itself, I'm going to make this a rounded top. I'm going to establish our door here. And since we're under an outcropping, I am going to make it so I can see the bottom of the outcropping. So now I know that if you walk up here, you're actually going to be under something before you actually get in. Let's establish our doors. And establish a sign, because why would you walk into a building that has no identification? Now, along with this, I'm going to establish some windows. Now, they're going to be the same height as a door, because that is most economical. And once again, all I'm doing is I'm following all of my vectors. Oops, get up here. All I'm doing here is that I'm following the vectors and establishing my height and my width using horizontal and vertical lines. Let's do some minor shading on that. Get a little sign here, our hours of operation, I guess. Stoop. And while we're at it, we'll just establish a few lines over here to serve as a making use of a parking lot. Don't worry too much about these, just because we are not going to get into cars, as I said, for a bit. That's a whole other can of worms I'm not ready for. Okay. Now we have one building established, so let's establish the next one. Now, seeing as this is supposed to be a smaller area, I'm going to just put myself an awning here, so it's going to be a little triangle that goes triangular prism as it gets further away. Set a few doors, but remember this is farther back, and the farther back we go, the less detail has to be put into things. Now I'm going to put some windows on top of these nice big windows. This place gets a lot of natural light. Gotta save on the electricity.
Excuse me, teachers, pardon this interruption. May I have the following 8th graders to the front office, please? Amani Herbert, Crystal Henderson, Jeremy Hurd, Cameron Coleman, Morgan Bush, Willie Lawrence, and Lewis Livingston. Thank you.
Sure are a lot of announcements today. So, as you can see here, all I did was use vertical lines. But what happens if we have windows on the side? Well, if you have your vectors going all the way to the corner, just put in a couple of horizontal lines here, and that will actually put you in perspective with what you have on the sides. Now, generally what I do, because I was taught by Marvel and DC artists, is that when you have a side of a building that is in shadow, the windows tend to stay lit. So unless you have like a power outage, leave those windows uncovered. Okay, well, we have 2 buildings on this side, so let's go on the other. Now, once again, smaller areas, so we will establish our awnings. So hold them up. And I'm going to make the doors about this tall. Now, since this is supposed to be a larger store, I guess kind of like a Walmart, well, maybe one of those grocery-only Walmarts, I'm going to space the doors out, put a few trash cans in place, get a little bit of signage going, and maybe establish a window up here. Let's say 2. You're upper management, why not? You get a window when you get an office. And since I'm over here, we've all seen those really big air conditioning units, so let's just plop one up here real quick, making sure to mind our perspective. And voila. Now, thanks to these shadings, we've already established our light sources over here, so I'm going to just spread some shading from our trash cans, a light post, and like everything else, they'll follow the vectors. You want to do a little bit of blending at the tips, since your shadows do fade the further away they get from the base. And for that matter, darken your shading closest to your object. Now, there's one last thing we want to do before we hit the sky, and that is, if everyone walks on this, how does anyone get into the parking lots? So let's just go ahead and erase further down from here, and we will hook in a little driveway. Just a little. Now, keep in mind that buildings are usually off the sidewalk. We haven't gotten to the big city yet where, like say, New York, where you step on the sidewalk and you're either in the street or in some fancy boutique, but we're going to save that for probably when we get to 2-point perspective. Now then, let's go to our light source. Since our light source is over here, let's say dead center mass. This looks kind of sunsetty, so let's just establish a light sun back here. If the sun is setting, that means the sky above is going to be darker, and it will get lighter as we get closer to our sun. Last time we were using those blending techniques we went over in the first 9 weeks. little bit of erasing if it goes a little too far than you want, and you'll also want to try and round this up since obviously everything's round. The Earth is round. Don't be a flat earther. And there you go, you have a street. Now the last step, as I said before, is that we're going to want to erase vectors. We're going to leave those out, clean that up. I might not worry too much with the test, but for your project and going forward from there, I'm going to want it as clean as possible. And leaving a bunch of vectors, especially if they're drawn heavy and can't be erased, will definitely hurt your grade. So let's not go shooting ourselves in our collective feet so early. And there you have it, a one-point perspective street, ready to go. Now tomorrow we come in, we are going to start with a staircase. So that'll be this one down here. Might make something decidedly spooky considering that this is October. So this one here. And with that, that is a wrap. Have a nice day.